Look, as a detective, I've heard my fair share of disturbing experiences. From domestic abuse to incest, I thought I'd seen it all. But these last couple of months, more and more people have been coming in about, and I used to feel stupid even saying it out loud because of how it sounds. But more and more people have been coming in about the children with the strange eyes. The first statement I ever received about them was Anne's, whom you'd never guess would lose her marbles to the point of doing what she did. This is more or less how her statement went. My name is Anne Perry. I started working here about 3 months ago, after requesting a transfer from my previous post because of my divorce. My ex and I used to be so in love. But after years of trying to have a baby, I think my last miscarriage broke us. I've been working at the new school in town. I live in a small flat above it while I look for my own place. The children in my class are well behaved and rather easy to handle. You could say I had nothing to complain about. But day after day, a feeling began to grow inside me. The feeling that I was being watched. I tried to ignore it at first, but it kept on growing. So I'd look around and sometimes I would almost see something right in the corner of my eye. But it was always gone too quickly for me to pinpoint. During that time, though, I did notice a very discreet child who was always left by himself during recess. I realized the other kids would just pass him by, always ignoring him. Once, I asked a nice student in my class, Mike, if he could invite him to play with his group. Mike agreed easily, but when I pointed at the lonely boy, he frowned and pretended he couldn't see him before running off. I just couldn't understand how even a kind little boy like Mike wouldn't even give this lonely kid a chance. How could they leave him like this, feeling so unwanted? This is when things started to take a strange turn. One particular night, I woke up around 3 a.m., maybe 4. It was pitch black, and I could hear the rain pouring outside. I was confused. I felt groggy and disoriented. Like I'd been drinking, which I hadn't. I think I'd been dreaming about something unsettling because my heart was pounding in my chest, but I could not remember anything except a pitch-black void. I get up to get a glass of water, but to get there, I have to pass a window that directly overlooks the school playground. I notice my curtains have been left open, which isn't like me. I walk up to the window, and I notice something moving by the swings on the playground. It's raining pretty hard, so it's hard to tell what exactly. I rub my eyes. The shape is gone. The following days, I begin to feel more and more restless, and I have trouble focusing on my lessons. I'm losing sleep too. I keep hearing strange sounds coming from the playground. I convince myself it's the wind, or the rain, but these noises bother me. Then this one night, I wake again around 3 a.m., feeling disoriented. I don't want to get up, but I feel compelled to do so, like my limbs are suddenly moving on their own accord. I look outside my window, directly onto the playground, and I see a small shadow, unmoving, like the one of a child. I panic, thinking one of the students must have been left behind all this time. I rush to grab my phone, ready to call the cops. But when I go back to the window, there's no one there. Still shaken, I decide to make myself a cup of tea, as I don't think I'll be able to fall asleep anytime soon. As the water stops boiling, I hear the softest knock on my door. A shy, delicate knock that sounds like it doesn't want to be heard. I'm thinking I must have dreamt it, but then there's another knock, followed by a small
"Hello?"
spoken by a kid. I open the door. Slowly. Carefully at first. I recognize the friendless boy from recess. "What are you doing here?" I ask him. It's the middle of the night. "Where are your parents?" He smiles softly at me and asks, in the politest tone, if I would please come play with him outside.
"Don't be scared. I just want to play a game with you."
He sounds so hopeful, I'm almost tempted to say yes despite the craziness of this request, it being 4 a.m. and all. I get down on one knee to get to eye level with him. His eyes. Dear God, his eyes. These are not human eyes. They're pitch black, bottomless. I feel faint. He slowly tilts his head and asks,
If you don't come play with me, then we will kill you.
In the back of my mind, I know I should call the police. I know I should freak out about those abnormal eyes. But all I can feel is how lonely this kid has been, how sad and unloved he feels. So I take his hand. We go down the stairs. We walk towards the swings. We begin to play. The next thing I know, it's morning, and I'm with the school janitor, who's looking at me like I've grown a second head. I try to explain, but he tells me the cops are on their way. Your colleagues bring me here. This is how Anne's statement ends, except this isn't the entire story. What she doesn't say, because she apparently can't remember it, is that very morning before the janitor intervened, she'd run up in her pajamas to grab the children arriving for school and urge them to play with her little boy. A little boy none of the kids could see. Only Anne. She was fired from her job, but she didn't mind. I heard she gave birth to a healthy baby boy 9 months later. Was she assaulted that night? I worry about her kid because I'm not sure his mother's entirely right in the head. But he's not the one I should have been worried about. This second statement is from little Allie's mom, Marion. Poor little Allie. You know, things have been difficult for us since Ted's death, she tells me during her deposition. I'm alone now. The love of my life is gone, and my relationship with my daughter has been strained. Allie was always a friendly, easygoing kid. But since Ted's been gone, she's been so angry. At me, at her friends, at nothing. She screams and fusses all the time. Putting her to sleep is an every night battle. I've been exhausted. Some days I even caught myself thinking that I would rather be alone. If only, for a little bit at least. To get my bearings straight or just to be able to cry. I regret ever thinking such an awful thought. Because somebody must have heard it. Or rather, something. Something evil. 10 days ago, Allie asked me if she could go play with a neighbor, in the woods behind our house. I was so relieved at the idea of her socializing and having some fun again, I didn't even think to ask who she was going with exactly. I just wanted her to be happy for a bit. By 9 p.m., Allie wasn't home. I knocked on every neighborhood door, but no one had seen her or heard of her going to the woods with anyone. I had no idea where she was and with who. I called the cops, but as I was waiting for someone to come over, the doorbell rings. Allie's home. I ask her where she's been. She says, outside, playing. Like I told you, Mother. Mother. I'm stunned. She never once called me Mother in her life. She offers to set the table, which is nothing short of a miracle these days. I'm thinking she feels bad for worrying me and is trying to make up for it. That night, she goes to bed easily, a small smile on her face. There's something about that smile, though. Something off. I tell myself, she's simply making an effort. But by the next day, her new, freaky politeness keeps going. Suddenly, Allie's offering to make breakfast, dresses for school without complaint, does her homework without being told. I don't recognize my own daughter. I should rejoice about this change, but I know in my gut that something is wrong. A couple days later, as I turn off her bedside lamp, I catch a glimpse of her eyes, just as she's about to close them, and I just know. This isn't my daughter. She looks like my daughter, sounds like her, moves like her. But this child that has come back from the woods, this child isn't my Allie. I know, because I've seen a glimpse of her real eyes. Pitch black, evil eyes without an ounce of humanity. My Allie's been replaced by something dark and ugly, something without a soul. I ask it what she's done to my Allie. That thing just smiles at me, taunting me. I leave the house and go into the woods, calling Allie's name. I searched for hours, convinced I could hear her calling to me faintly amongst the bustling sound of the wind in the trees. I found nothing but her little red sweater in a puddle. Just like my husband, my child had been taken from me. I wasn't going to let the creature responsible for it get away with it. So it thought it could replace my child in my heart? Not a chance in hell. So I went home, grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find, and avenged Allie's death. Believe me or don't, but I'm not sorry. Marion was charged with Allie's murder and has been in prison ever since. Psychiatrists diagnosed her with depression and dissociation, and I believed it at the time. But now, after hearing so many stories, I wonder, what do these children want? I can't help but think they're here for a reason, like we're being tested somehow. I leave the case files about the black-eyed children on my desk and head for my car outside the station. But just as I'm about to start the engine, I hear a small voice outside, asking me for a ride. I look outside my window.